Hi, my name is Marian Santini. I work for the Regulatory Assistance Project, who is a partner in the SENSEI project. SENSEI is funded by Horizon 2020, the EU framework program for research and innovation. SENSEI looks at pay-for-performance schemes for energy efficiency. P4P schemes are innovative ways to provide finance for energy savings. They are mainly used in the US. SENSEI aims at elaborating P4P schemes that can be implemented in the EU, at linking the P4P concept with energy performance contracts, and developing business models and service offers. This presentation is based on a report published for the SENSEI project. The report looks at the experience and lessons learned from pay-for-performance pilot schemes. Increasing the energy efficiency of the EU's building stock is key for reaching our climate goals. More buildings need to be renovated each year to increase the energy performance. The current renovation rate is far from what would be required to meet our 2050 goals. The energy system will become more and more electrified and based on renewable energy. Buildings can help reduce peak energy consumption by providing flexibility services. So we have a policy challenge to tackle. How can we increase the impact of buildings' energy efficiency policies? How can we reward buildings for providing services to the energy system? P4P schemes are being put in place in North America to respond to similar challenges. In the report, we have reviewed 11 examples. Most of them are from the US, with two exceptions. One is in Canada and one is in Germany. These programs are put in place by public authorities, utilities, or system operators. Many of them are happening in the context of an energy efficiency obligation scheme, and they are driven by the need to increase the impact of these schemes. As you can see in the table, most of the P4P programs we have reviewed target large commercial buildings. Now, I am going to explain what makes P4P programs different from traditional energy efficiency support schemes. Let's take the example of a traditional subsidy scheme. In the EU, the majority of energy efficiency programs rely on deemed savings methodologies. This means assumptions are made about the savings brought by a particular measure. You usually get the subsidy at the beginning of the project based on the equipment you have bought or installed. What makes P4P schemes different from traditional support schemes is that they make use of energy metering equipment. The energy consumption of the building is tracked. This data is compared to a baseline, which shows how energy consumption would have evolved in the absence of the measure. If the project is delivering savings, a payment is done. This payment is proportional to the amount of energy saved. The cash flow structure of P4P schemes makes them different from a traditional subsidy scheme. With the subsidy scheme, you generally get the payment at the beginning of the project. For the public authority or utility delivering the payment, there is always a risk that the impact is lower than expected. This can happen, for example, if the equipment is not installed properly. In a P4P program, the payments are issued once there is evidence that the intervention has delivered savings. It is usually 1 year after the installation. This has two consequences. The project developer has to wait until energy consumption is measured to receive a payment. If a project does not deliver, there is no payment. The project developer takes the performance risk away from the public authority or utility. This figure is an illustration. In practice, P4P schemes can have different performance and payment structures. Overall, the performance rules are quite similar across the examples we have reviewed. Usually, the programs are quite flexible in terms of which measures are eligible. The programs often require the use of smart meters to collect data before and after the intervention. In some cases, the building owner is rewarded directly based on performance. In other cases, there is an aggregator who is rewarded based on the performance of its project portfolio. The aggregator has its own contract with building owners. This contract does not necessarily have a P4P structure. We have found a lot of diversity in the payment structures of P4P schemes. In some cases, payments are 100% proportional to the energy saved, but in many cases, there is also a grant which goes to the project and which is not based on performance. This can lower the risk for the project developer to engage in a P4P scheme. The price per unit of energy saved can be set in advance by the contracting authority, or it can be the result of a bidding process between aggregators. Sometimes there is a bonus for more challenging energy savings actions. There are differences in the duration of the performance contract. The maximum we have found was 5 years, the minimum was 1 year. I'll go through one example in California by the Pacific Gas and Electric Company, PG&E. It's the only case study we have reviewed which targets the residential sector exclusively. With the deployment of smart meters, there has been recent developments in the SME and residential sectors, and more can be expected in these sectors in the coming years. PG&E has selected aggregators to deliver the savings. These aggregators are rewarded based on the energy savings delivered to their client portfolio. Household participants are not rewarded on a P4P basis. PG&E used the Caltrack method, which is an open source methodology to calculate the savings. The compensation provided to the aggregators is 100% proportional to the energy saved. The price per unit of energy saved is the result of the bids by aggregators. Aggregators receive monthly payments from PG&E. They don't have to wait for 1 year to receive the incentive. They receive payments during 2 years. The compensation takes into account the lifetime of the measures, so long-term measures are encouraged, even though the contract only runs for 2 years. Let me now briefly go through the recommendations of the report in view of a rollout of P4P schemes in the EU. P4P schemes can add value to the tools that are currently used to reward building owners for taking energy efficiency measures. For this reason, we recommend that policymakers in the EU start piloting P4P programs now. It takes time to find the right program structure, so it makes sense to start small and build on experience. We need a comprehensive set of measures to decarbonize the building stock and reach broader climate and energy objectives. P4P schemes should integrate with this broader context. A good example of complementary policies can be found in the District of Columbia in the US, where the P4P scheme helps building managers comply with the obligation on buildings performance. In the report, we also stress the importance of setting good measurement rules for energy savings. In the EU, member states should be aware of the accounting rules in the Energy Efficiency Directive if they want to count P4P schemes towards the energy savings obligation under Article 7 of the EED. Smart meters are not absolutely required, but they allow P4P to be rolled out at a much lower cost. This way, you can go beyond large industrial buildings and target fleets of residentials or SME buildings. With smart meters, you can also compensate energy savings that take place at peak consumption periods. Something which came up in many of the interviews we had with P4P program managers was the need to adapt the P4P scheme to local conditions. There is a lot of experience which has been accumulated, but each market is different. That's also why stakeholder engagement is key in the development of the pilot scheme, but also during the scheme rollout. Finally, we recommend that program managers publish the results of pilot evaluation and exchange knowledge. We hope that our report can help start a dialogue in the EU. You can download it on the SENSEI website. Feel free to reach out to the authors if you have a question or comments. I thank you very much for your attention.